We're talking to Colonel Bill Bathurst today, and can I call you Bill?
Please do.
Okay. Bill, I always called you Colonel when I first met you.
Well, that was appreciated.
Okay, well, I understand that you have an anniversary coming up.
Oh, indeed I do.
Could you tell us about that?
Well, I've been on a long trail since I had a liver transplantation. And on this month, on the 26th, I will be celebrating my 5,000th day since transplantation. Now, for an old guy, this isn't bad. And the people who care for me, the doctors, the nurses, are all absolutely thrilled, and they're all just joyous when they call me. And it is a good landmark for a person who's had transplantation. 5,000, it works.
Yeah, we're talking 12, 13 years?
14 years.
14 years.
14 years, November 14th, but how did I know that?
Yeah, really. Well, you seem so fit. I mean, you seem very,
This business is all an athletic event. I intended, although I was very ill from my liver disease, I've always felt that man has an obligation to be as fit as possible. And I felt when I saw this coming on, I worked very hard because it was my intention to walk into the hospital, not be carried in, and to walk out. And that's what I did.
Well, I have read your story. You've posted your story on the website about transplants, and it's a very inspiring story. So maybe you could tell us. You were a colonel in the Air Force, is that right?
Yes. I had a heart attack and ultimately required bypass surgery and I had it done at Duke University Medical Center. During that procedure, because I was relatively fit, they couldn't stop the bleeding because I had good blood flow. Well, what did they do? They gave me a blood transfusion, quite a lot of blood. This was before they could test for hepatitis C. It was during that event that I contracted hepatitis C. The medical people called it non-A, non-B. I thought that was ridiculous because if it wasn't A and it wasn't B, it had to be C. But obviously I didn't understand the medical terminology. But now it's hepatitis C. And we diagnosed it almost immediately, but it didn't bother me. And it's a virus that attacks primarily the liver, and it is an ongoing problem. And I did very well with it for a long time and really didn't pay a lot of attention to it. About 6 years after the operation, though, I began to get the effects as the virus, the hepatitis C virus, attacked my liver. Things went downhill there, and I spent a couple of years seeking all sorts of treatments, advice, counsel, and I must say that many people came to my aid. I was certainly carried along by the expertise of others. Finally, after several biopsies, I was put on the so-called list at Emory University Hospital for a transplant.
Well, one of the things that struck me was that you had lived a life of being physically fit, and then you got this hepatitis C through a medical intervention. Now, I know me, I would feel kind of angry about that.
Well, some people say I should sue, but no, that's not my style. And really, there was no test at the time. Fortunately, there is a test for hepatitis C. More people have hepatitis C than are aware of it. There are probably some people going to watch this program who have hepatitis C and don't know it. It frequently comes up in an employment exam or a routine physical exam. I just read this morning that Natalie Cole, the daughter of the singer, has hepatitis C.
Wow. Well, I guess I didn't mean so much angry at the medical, but just sort of angry at God or angry at life, that sort of thing. You didn't go through that?
No. You are in your situation. You've got to be comfortable in your own shoes. And you just deal with the problem and look forward. It's, I don't think, get angry at anybody else. And actually what's happened to me, there's a wonderful word that not many people know. It's called iatrogenic. Iatrogenic is where things start from a medical situation and they just kind of get worse. I started with heart disease. I had the bypass surgery, I got the hepatitis C, I had the transplant, and one of the bypasses or one of the results of transplantation frequently is diabetes. So now I have diabetes. It's all iatrogenic, all started down a medical track. Nothing I did, nothing I inherited.
Right.
But I have to tell you, even with the diabetes, you talk about physical fitness, diabetes, diet and exercise are very, very important in that, in dealing with that. But you deal with that. Who knows what's going to be next? Some people say my hearing is going.
But it sounds like it's an incredibly healthy attitude. I think wish more of us could have that attitude towards
I don't
life.
know why anybody would suffer with anger.
All right. Well, going on with your story, as I recall what you wrote, that you were considered too old for a transplant at the time. Is that correct?
Yes, that's an interesting situation because they really can't tell you that. And you have to be perceptive. And when they give you the wave off, the slow wave off, and, well, we can consider this, and well, perhaps the game's up. Actually, in my case, the game was on because I left that hospital, worked my way down I-85 to Charlotte, where I was given excellent treatment by gastroenterologists and neurologists in that area. And one of the side effects there is an interferon protocol that sometimes can reduce or eliminate hepatitis C. It doesn't work all the time, but it's worth trying. The interferon didn't work. That's an awful treatment. You really feel like you have the flu all the time, and yet you think you're getting well. It's a ridiculous situation. But anyhow, let's say I flunked Durham, I flunked Charlotte, was on to Atlanta. And through some friends, I got a wonderful gastroenterologist, Dr. Michael Fried, at Emory University. And he took my case, he gave me excellent care. But I further deteriorated, and finally I was eligible to be considered for the list. The final straw on that is that you go, I went into the hospital for a week, and they gave me every test you can think of, including psychological. When you have liver disease, you don't think correctly. A lot of people don't realize that. And because I'd had the heart problem, they didn't know that I could stand the stress of the transplant operation, which is serious. We're talking serious stuff. This is big boy stuff. Put your big boy clothes on. This is big.
Yeah.
When you have a transplant. So I was in the hospital for a week. The cardiologist came by and they really gave me a hard time, and I said it's going to be like a rock. But the best fun was when the psychologist lady came by. And my wife have had a lot of laughs about the questions she asked me. It just was a lot of fun. But anyhow, at the end of the week, they deemed I was mentally and physically capable of undergoing transplant. And I did ask a psychologist if I couldn't have a piece of paper that said I was actually sane. That show some of my friends. I still wasn't on the list. There was a little further evaluation, and then I was placed on the list in early fall of 1994. Now the list is confusing to some people. It's not a queue. You know, once you get on, you don't move up like in the grocery store or the barber shop or the beauty parlor. Your position on the list can change every day because somebody sicker than you, more ill than you can show. So that person goes up to the head ahead of you in the line. So it's changing all the time. Well, one night, I got a telephone call from the nurse coordinator who was, shall we say, holding my hand through all this waiting period, Rebecca Adams, wonderful lady. Well, they're all wonderful down there. Anyhow, she said about 11 o'clock at night, "We've got a liver for you, Bill." And I said, smart guy that I was, I said, "You got to be kidding." And she said, "Colonel, we do not kid about these things." So because of the problems in the brain that I mentioned earlier, I had not been driving my automobile for some time.
Right.
So my dear wife, Romney, we got in the car and we headed for Atlanta. Well, that was one of the most emotional nights of my life because I did not know the outcome.
Yes.
This is serious stuff. But it was a moonlight night, and there were no cars on the road. It was just memorable, obviously. And I felt, I don't want to get too emotional about this, but I felt I was floating down there, supported by all my friends and Cashiers and Highlands. I'd been in both Rotaries, Highlands Rotary and the Cashiers Rotary, over the years, and my church. I felt very good about this event, but it's back of my mind, you know. I'd had problems with medical services before, you know, so anyhow, the game was on, and I was delighted that we were finally going in. One more physical, and they took me down, strapped me up, and that's all I remember. Interesting point, though, the man ahead of me in the line at that moment had come in, but he had pneumonia. Wow. So they would not transplant him. And I got basically his spot.
One of the things that I found most moving in your story was the way you talked about how all these things were being prepared beforehand. Could you talk about that?
I'm glad you spotted that, because I think about that issue all the time. Well, I was out having a good time, both in Highlands and Cashiers, excuse me, and in my Air Force career and the various things I've been privileged and honored to do. There were people doing stuff I absolutely would not want to do. Can you think about staying up at night and studying chemistry? I couldn't study chemistry during the day. But people were studying chemistry and medical aspects and viruses, and in fact, the man who really started transplantation, liver transplantation, he took a year off from medical school and bought his own cadavers and worked in his apartment in Chicago.
Wow.
This whole story is just outrageous, but these people did it. The nurses on the 9th floor where you recover, they all have advanced degrees. They answer your questions like that, loving people. They were working hard while I was playing. And I do think about those people, the preparation and the time, personal and monetary investment that they had getting to that point. Must add, of course, somewhere out there was a family who had made a decision, if anything happened, they would be organ donors. And that's what happened to me. My donor family had made the decision, so the medical staff was ready, and the donor organ was ready, and it all came together. And I'm the sole lazy beneficiary, because actually, I was asleep.
But yet we think we're so self-sufficient. You know, we kind of take pride in our independence.
Well, when they tie you to those boards, you know it's over.
Well, and so one interesting thing is you talked about walking into the hospital and walking out. Your fitness level really paid off here also, didn't
Absolutely. It? I used to tell them, I don't know if you've been to the Emory Hospital, they have, the floors are sort of like a triangle, so to see, and they get you up walking pretty fast. Uh-huh. I got up one night and a LPN helped me walk around, stood with me, and I had to carry the pole, the whole bit. And it was a lot of fun, because I went around, by the time I got around the nurse's station, they were all reading pocketbooks or writing to their boyfriends or something, and the lights were down. I was feeling pretty frisky. I asked them if any of them had the telephone number for Domino's. We could get a pizza ordered in here. So I had a lot of fun. But I told them, they got very used to me walking, because I walked a lot, because I was told this was a good thing. I said, very soon you all are not going to notice it, but I am going to slip down the stairs and be gone. And but of course I wasn't. But that was I had a lot of fun. I want to make the point. I did not know how ill I was until I awoke in the ICU afterwards with that new liver and that fresh blood flowing through there. It was really eye-opening, because liver disease is so slow. And when that new blood, so that new liver, wow, that's why I was so frisky. I felt great.
So you just actually gone through a transplant, but you woke up feeling better than you had just a couple days, for years.
For years.
Wow. Well, I mean, I think a lot of people are pretty ignorant of what the liver does. And I mean, I'm not asking for anything really detailed here, but what does the liver do in the body?
Well, the most obvious thing is that we think about mostly, especially men, is it's a cleanser, and it's taking care of the cheap beer. But it does have a cleansing action, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it metabolizes everything. It's your cholesterol. It's your chemical factory, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a cholesterol problem, it starts in the liver. Your blood thickness, all the blood characteristics, because there's a straight express line from the heart to the liver and back. So if you cannot digest protein, for example, because the liver is not functioning properly, you get encephalopathy, which is you slur your words, you don't think straight. That's why they took me off driving.
What about the support system, for during this time with your wife or other?
You're going to get me misty-eyed.
I like misty eyes.
It just couldn't have been more beautiful. The church, the hospital, the 2 Rotary clubs, all my friends on Big Sheep Cliff. I heard from them. They were pulling for me. I felt it. They didn't have to write a letter. I did get notes and flowers and all of that sort of, but I didn't need that because I could actually feel it. I was lifted up.
The title of your story was called Into the Wind. What did you mean by that?
Well, aviation, you fly into the wind to get elevation. You have a headwind. There are things against you. But still you must strive, you must press on. And I felt I was lifted by all the support group into this elevation to success. It's just the way I felt about it. It wasn't easy, but I didn't do anything. I was the patient, and everybody took care of me.
Well, I have an organ donor checked off on my driver's license.
Good for you.
But there's a lot of perception. People are nervous about doing that. What's the obstacle for people about this?
A lot of people are just uninformed. A lot of people think there's a religious ban about it. A lot of people don't want to think about it. In my case, I'd heard about transplant, and I said, well, that's for sick people. I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, I'll check that off on my license, and never really thought much about it.
Right.
Now I are one. I am in need. A lot of misconceptions. I think that people are stealing organs. And I'm sure this happens overseas. But here you get a quality organ. Some people go overseas to get an organ because they can't get one here, and they're very possible to get a diseased organ over there.
Right.
Anyhow, about only 1% of the people who die are eligible to be organ donors. 1%. And they have to be legally brain dead, medically brain dead. So you just don't die.
Yeah.
You have to be brain dead. And usually this is an accident.
Yeah.
It causes brain death. Then you can be. But those people who do the transplanting, they have nothing to do with it. You're surgically, they're trying to help you. They'll do everything they can to help you live. And then when you're declared brain dead, and if you are an organ donor, then it is put on the United Network of Organ Services to determine where this organ is needed. Let's say it's a liver, and the person dies in Gainesville, Georgia. And the patient is in Atlanta who needs that organ, not the person who's in Jacksonville or Greenville. But on the list, the national list, it's the guy down in Atlanta.
Right.
And it gets flown down there and is used for that individual. But it's only 1%. Some people think they butcher you. No, they don't. You can have an open casket. There is no religious, of any religion I ever heard of, where there's any forbidding of organ donation. The,
You know,
we talk about recycling, doggone it. This is recycling, organ donation. So if you're one of the 1%, and I'm very sorry, but if you're one of the 1%, you can save 8 lives, and you can make a tremendous improvement in the life of 50 people. So it's a good way to even your score as you go out, as some of the things you might have done.
but it's being of use. As when you die, you are being of use
Yes,
to
I-
other people.
Even today, after all of this, and even before, when I thought about it, gee, isn't that neat? You can give something to somebody. It don't make any difference to you. You still have your spirit.
Yes, yes. Well, a couple things. I mean, time is of the essence.
Yes.
So this needs to be clear. Your wishes do need to be clear. How do they know?
Well, there's several ways. I think that it's my opinion that the best way is for the family to know.
Right.
Tell the family. I don't care if it's on your driver's license or not. If you get in an auto accident and you're killed, no, probably your wallet or your purse is in the police department downtown.
Right.
And so the best thing is for your family to be clear with your family that this is what you want. Also, there's a legal binding way in North Carolina. North Carolina is very progressive. You can go to donatelifenc.org and register online, and that keeps all the legal requirements that you are an organ donor. I wish to be an organ donor. As I tell people, I want you to be an organ donor, but don't rush. Don't hurry it. And that's was just passed into law fall last year, just became possible through the internet on the 1st of April of this year.
Okay.
So it's donatelifenc.org. And as I tell people, I want you to live life, live it, then give it.
Live it,
real
then
simple.
give it. That's nice. Well, so you said, I think 8 people. So there's, can
It's
you?
all the organs.
All the organs.
You got 2 kidneys. There you go.
Yeah.
That's 2.
Right.
Liver, heart, eyes, there's all sorts of things. I always thought it'd be interesting, and when I get crazy thinking, which I do sometimes, my eyes and somebody else.
Yeah.
How would that be?
I know some people are concerned religiously who believe in the bodily resurrection, that you are disturbed. If you take out your organs, then you cannot be resurrected.
Well, I'm not a religious expert. I would find that difficult to believe based on what I know.
Yeah.
We know what happens to the body after it goes in the ground, do we not, boys and girls? And I would trust that your spirit lives on. That's what I'm counting on. Mm-hmm. And
but in a non-physical way.
yes. And again, I say there's no religion I know that prevents it. Somebody can tell me one, or maybe they'll create one, but we've looked at this because this is exactly, you raise a valid concern, and it has been addressed. Sure. Recycle yourself. You go out and talk about recycling, here's a chance, recycle yourself, for Pete's sake.
Well, maybe we could talk about, it's like you've been given 14 years of life. How has that been for you?
Oh, here you go again. I've got 3 grandchildren I might never have seen. I have special children around, relatives I care deeply about, and I've watched them grow and mature. And I think about the fact that I did get an organ donation, made all of that possible. Plus, I think my dear Romney and I had sort of a change of heart. We became very active travelers. We traveled a little before, so we've been burning that credit card. I've been to Africa 3 times, been to the Antarctic twice, been to the Arctic, Australia, New Zealand a couple times. Let's see, Alaska a couple of times. We've done a lot of traveling, and we go to Scotland every year. I think it's freed me up. I'm not as tense about my life, my situation. I said, I've got a wonderful life. I better live it. I've been given this rich gift, by an unknown donor family. And I'm going to enjoy it. My wife is in Sumatra right now. She is a bird lady. She is a very avid birder. And I'm delighted that she is, as we speak, in Indonesia, a mere 11 hours away by the clock. But I think it changed our lifestyle a lot. We've always been travelers, but we've cranked it up a lot. I don't think she unpacks.
But it's like you've had the it's not, you're just not going to sit back and let life pass you by. You're just
no.
seize it.
I'm glad to do this interview because I want to promote organ donation, but I do not want to be known in the community as a guy who's sick or a guy who had a transplant. I want to be known as a guy who's living.
Yes.
And Bill's active in this and Bill's active in that, and health tracks, for example. You know I'm active over there, both as a participant and as a volunteer.
Well, I've known you for a few years, and I never thought of you as sick.
Thank you for that.
I thought of you as admirably active, actually.
Thank you.
So, well, thank you for doing this interview. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, live it and give it. You can make a difference if you want to. It's easy because you won't know a thing. And just think, you can make a substantial difference in a person's life, old or young. And what an opportunity that is presented to you. Thank you very much for doing it.